So, Justin, the biggest storyline that I've been following from this past week is the Buffalo Bills running back usage from this past week of games. James Cook got a large majority of the snaps and the carries. He played on 9 out of the 13 snaps of starters, got 4 carries on those snaps. But then Damian Harris came in on the goal line, found pay dirt. So I'm wondering, is that how you're viewing how this dynamic is going to play out? I know this was Damian Harris's first game of the preseason. So that could be how the dynamic is. Maybe Damian Harris cuts a little bit more as the season progresses. I'm not really sure what all to take away from this, but how are you viewing this Bills backfield?
There's a real scenario where this Bills backfield looks a lot like the Detroit Lions backfield from last year, where James Cook plays in that DeAndre Swift role, right? He's going to get targets. He's going to get some carries, obviously. But Damian Harris may come in and just be a hammer at the goal line. We saw New England use him in that exact role a couple of years ago. And he put up 15 touchdowns and looked damn good doing it. I don't think this really, right? This is like basically a 60 or a 70-30 split. That's what it comes out of from week 3 of the preseason. I expect that to get a lot closer. Damian Harris coming off of a knee injury with his first game back with the team. First game, right? Put it in quotes. This is my concern for James Cook is he has that size that brings up concerns. He has the lack of workhorse usage in college. All of these things kind of point to, maybe it's 60-40, maybe it's 55-45 with Damian Harris really more suited or at least built for the red zone role. So I think that does throw a little bit of cold water on that, like James Cook superstar breakout that some people are driving, like that hype train. I've not been there. I have not been there all off season. And this is kind of what I expect moving forward, where he's probably an RB2. I think RB2, like back end RB2 for James Cook, feels correct. And Damian Harris is like a flex with some touchdown upside. I think that's how this will play out this season.
I think that's ultimately where I've landed on this backfield as well. And funny enough, you mentioned like the Detroit Lions backfield. I just threw a thread out on Twitter naming 5 guys that I think that could be this year's Jamal Williams, so to speak, like these hammer, running backs that just find the end zone a ton this year. And that's where the majority of their value comes from, just like Jamal Williams did last year. He just happened to find it a lot, and he was a fantasy RB2 last year. So I actually did have Damian Harris in that thread, precisely for the reasons that you laid out, that he already has a season of 15 touchdowns just 2 years ago in 2021. He had moderately good usage last year with the Patriots still, while Ramondre Stevenson was kind of starting to break out too, and he was being used more as the primary receiver with a little bit of the 2-down work. But Harris was still getting decent usage and didn't find the end zone as much. But in a Buffalo Bills offense, I'm sure they're going to find the end zone or at least have more goal line opportunities than the New England Patriots offense last year. So, yeah, we've been on the Damian Harris, value train all offseason, that he's a guy that, if you're going to decide between the two, just go with the cheaper guy who has, I think, just as good of an opportunity to score as many fantasy points as James Cook, depending on what Cook does through the air. But I do agree with you that I do think that Cook is still a good player as a back end RB2, maybe with a little bit more of a front end RB2 upside, depending on his receiving workload and if he's just good enough that he can find the end zone, a handful of times outside of the 10 or 15-yard line.
The storyline I'm tracking, right, sticking with the theme of running backs gaining hype right now, it is Roschon Johnson might actually have a clearly defined role in this offense. At least that's how it looked after week 3 of the preseason. He went from basically playing with just the backups week 1 and week 2 to getting both of the third down snaps with the starters in week 3. Now, that's notable because the big knock has always been, right, Khalil Herbert can't catch. He can't pass block. I've said that several times. As much as I like Khalil Herbert, he cannot pass block. It has always been his Achilles heel, it seems. So, Addison, are you sticking with the idea that Roschon is going to take over this backfield? Or, is he a pivot target if you're trading James Cook? How are you valuing him moving forward here?
I do, and have thought this whole entire summer, basically, that Roschon is the best all-around complete running back in this backfield.
Agreed.
Khalil Herbert is a very good runner of the football, but Roschon has the ability of pass blocking. He has sneaky receiving ability as well. He was able to steal double-digit receptions away last year
Yep.
behind Bijan Robinson in the Texas offense in the limited plays that he was playing last year, which
Yeah.
is it's pretty impressive to say the least. So Roschon, I think that this makes sense for the Bears. You're going to give Khalil Herbert the nod first because he has the experience in the offense. He has the experience with Justin Fields. And then you're going to bring this rookie along, and he's already making his mark on third down. He's making his mark as a pass blocker, as a receiver. Now he just needs to show that he could be just as effective, if not more effective, than Khalil Herbert on the ground. And then eventually, I think the basically the torch we pass to Roschon in a more complete, I'm not going to say bell cow fashion, but
Yeah.
he is more of the 1A, and Herbert comes in like how it was with David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, where Roschon is now the new DMOT. So that is the role that I see in the future. Not sure how long it takes to get there. It might be not until like December before we ultimately see that come to fruition. But I do think that is in the cards coming for Roschon.
This is where you and I have differed all season. Like I am a believer in Khalil Herbert just as a runner. Like you said, like again, I don't think we're gonna get a ton from him in the pass game. Pass blocking, it's always gonna be an issue. But I don't think, I mean, Khalil Herbert to me is one of the better just pure runners in the NFL. I mean, the man just rips off monster runs. He is at least going to get the first nod, like you said, in what could be a top five, should be a top five running attack in the NFL. So I love Khalil Herbert. I'm all in on him this season, especially. Long term, I agree. I think Roschon will eventually just kind of force his way through because he does offer three down ability. Like that's the big thing long term. He's basically pushed his way. He's forced his way into playing time with the starters already. That's what you want to see from these guys, right? You don't want them to be buried on depth charts leaving the preseason. That just doesn't put confidence in a player's stock. So Roschon is trending in the right direction. How high he trends and when he gets there, I don't really know.
So, Justin, speaking of these rookies that are just making a mark in preseason on their teams very early on, you know who's not doing that right now, unfortunately, for a lot of
Who?
people? Quentin Johnston apparently is just not cutting into this Chargers receiving core as of yet, at least, because all of preseason, he has played 49 snaps in the preseason, and Joshua Palmer has played 0 and has sat every single game along with the starters. So as of right now, it seems like Quentin Johnston is the wide receiver 4 on the step chart. Joshua Palmer is still ahead of him, so he still has a little bit of work to go and grow into this role on the Chargers before he can make any sort of impact. So it might be a kind of a rough year one. What are you doing with this news? What are you doing with this usage? Basically, how much rope are you giving Quentin Johnston?
It's difficult to not like overreact to these things. I don't want to look at this and say, man, his career is doomed. He's not playing with the starters right away, right? Like that's obviously not where we're going to go with this. This is not, all doom and gloom saying he'll never pan out. But it's not what you want to see, right? Again, we talk about sometimes like the vibes of the situation. Vibes are bad. You want Quentin Johnston to have earned some level of rest. And on the flip side of this, I like that he's playing because he came out and he was a raw player. Like he was not
Right.
a polished route runner. These are things he needed to work on. So this also could just be the coaching staff acknowledging he needs, time against better competition. He needs time to get up to speed in the NFL. And if that's the case, that's ultimately going to be fine for him, right? I think if we get to week 5, week 6, and he is still struggling to break into this offense, right? He's kind of stagnant, then I'll be concerned, right? Come out of the bye week and he doesn't see an uptick, that's when we can really start to panic. But again, I don't know if you're looking at this differently. To me, it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely not a good thing that I want to see leaving his first preseason.
Yeah, it is a little bit of both, like you just said. I'm looking at, Nathan Janke writes up phenomenal articles on PFF, and he's the one that's charting all of these snap counts and routes run and carries for all of these players in the preseason, especially which players are doing that whenever the starters actually play. And his last note here about Quentin Johnston says, it's also worth remembering players such as Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave were playing behind Braxton Berrios and Marquez Callaway, respectively, in their third preseason week last season. So
Yep.
those two players obviously ended up very, very fine. And like you
Yes.
said, this is not a nail in the coffin for Quentin Johnston and his overall career. It's just a bumpy road at the very beginning. It is interesting, I think, that the Chargers have a week 5 bye. So they're
Yeah.
one of the earliest bye weeks in the season in just early October. So it will be interesting to see if Quentin Johnston can get up to speed by then, because generally, like you said, rookies after their team's bye weeks, generally you start to see that uptick in their usage and their snap counts and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see by then if he's not grown or has grown into a wide receiver 3 role. But as of right now, I mean, he's a rookie wide receiver. You got to let this thing develop at least
Right.
out through the rookie season and whatnot. So I'm not worried at all. I'm not selling. I'm not really doing anything with the information. I just think it's something that you need to monitor if you have Quentin Johnston, how his actual usage is going to look throughout the first couple of weeks past the bye week.
So, sticking with the wide receiver position, I do want to talk about a wide receiver injury. It is not the one a lot of you are thinking it is. I'm talking about Terry McLaurin and turf toe. Addison, is this changing anything for you in that offense? Whether it's Sam Howell's value, whether it is Jahan Dotson's value, whether it's Curtis Samuel's value, even. Is anything shifting now that, he's sustained a turf toe injury? He might be ready for week one. They also play the Cardinals, so maybe they sit him out week one and then just hope he gets healthier and healthier as the season goes. Are you concerned there, or what are you doing?
There's not a lot of overall concern for McLaurin specifically, and especially from a dynasty standpoint, if that's what you're paying attention for
Yep.
from this video, is there's no concern about McLaurin. If you're looking for just the season, though, it might be a bumpy road for the first couple of weeks as they try to bring him back, and hopefully the injury doesn't then spark something else down the road, causing him to re-aggravate the injury or get injured somewhere else because he's compensating for that turf toe. So that could be something that happens. The biggest takeaway for me for this is Jahan Dotson, dude.
Oh,
I am
yeah.
I am so here for Jahan Dotson to be the wide receiver 1 for this team for as many weeks as we could possibly get him. Because I do think that his connection with Sam Howell, I think, is going to be really, really phenomenal. We've already seen it played out so well in the preseason that those two are just on the lock with a connection. So I'm excited for that to actually translate through the regular season, and we get fantasy points for that. So that'll be really, really fun. Um, for Sam Howell, obviously it's not ideal for you to lose your wide receiver 1 or 1A in an offense. Don't think it necessarily matters all that much because, like, again, I think McLaurin comes back in a week or two. They might just play it safe because, again, Arizona in week 1
Full
probably,
tank.
yeah, it's just, they could probably just run
Yeah.
with Brian Robinson 25 times and then give Antonio Gibson 20 rush attempts, and that's all they need to do. But
Seven
um,
7-0 win and be done. Get out of
and
there.
and that's it. 8-0 because their spread is 7, and I'm betting them to cover the spread. So I need at least 8 or 10. Um, but uh, but yeah, no, there's not a whole lot of concern overall for anybody to go down. I'm just really excited for Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, I think what this could do is basically kind of inflate Jahan Dotson's value, at least leading up to week one. Again, you're seeing it in redraft leagues already. And then if Jahan Dotson balls out, like, you could see that stock skyrocket. If he gets
Yeah.
2 weeks as the unquestioned one in that offense, I mean, it's going to be, I think, very telling about what he could turn into in the future. And if he really does have a chance to even supplant Terry McLaurin as the 1A in this offense, I think that's what I'm going to watch, because we saw him the last time he played with Sam Howell in a regular season game. It was fireworks. Like, he was spectacular against the Cowboys. So these are just things to keep in mind. It may affect values moving forward, but like you said, long term, I don't really care all that much because it's not going to be, ideally, an extended injury here.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt this video, but I wanted to let y'all know about our YouTube memberships on this channel. If you want extra bonus content from Justin or myself, access to my prospect database for all rookies since 2001, access to our exclusive Discord channel, as well as badges and emojis, then check out the YouTube memberships using the link in the description down below. The bonus content tier is what you're looking for more DLF on YouTube. Thanks for checking it out, guys, and we'll get back to this amazing video. So moving over to the other big wide receiver injury, probably the one that you guys were expecting first whenever Justin brought up wide receiver injury. Jerry Jeudy, obviously this hamstring injury, not very ideal. This is going to probably go into the regular season, and it's probably going to hamper him pretty significantly for, I don't know, maybe even half of the year, as he just kind of, you know how these soft tissue injuries
Yeah.
work their ways into just ruining a whole entire season. Justin, what are we doing here? It feels like we were in the dark place with J.K. Dobbins. We got out of that. We're in a dark place now with Jerry Jeudy. When do we get to see the actual light at the end of the tunnel?
If you have Jerry Jeudy right now in Dynasty, like this is the last thing you needed. Because if you were on Twitter at all, basically everything you saw was he's injury prone. Of course, this was going to happen. Jerry Jeudy always gets hurt. His value has just absolutely plummeted. I don't want to necessarily say use this as an opportunity to buy low potentially, but I like the talent is there. It has never been a question of talent with Jerry Jeudy. But damn, if you have him, the value is as low as it could possibly be right now. He's probably, when August ADP comes out for startups, it may be the lowest his ADP has ever been. Because again, with these guys that get injured consistently or have unlucky injury, luck, call it that, the next time an injury pops up, when everybody's kind of buying in, that is when the other shoe drops and they just crater in value. On the flip side of this, Cortland Sutton, unfortunately, has life to start the season. He is a solid player without Jerry Jeudy. He's going to be an interesting flex if you have him. I am 100% using it as an opportunity to sell high. And then the other one here is Marvin Mims. Like Marvin Mims, I still don't know if he ever finds stardom in fantasy, but this is going to give us a really good look at what Marvin Mims currently is on, week 1, week 2, week 3, whatever, that stretch of games is without Jerry Jeudy. So we get a very good look into the second rounder's talent and ability. And if he's ever going to be more than just, that kind of gadgety, low volume player he kind of played in college. So that's how I'm addressing, all three of them moving forward right now.
I think an underrated aspect in this kind of Broncos passing game, if you will, is with the targets left over from Jerry Jeudy and the way that Javonte Williams has been utilized as a receiver out of the backfield. That could be interesting to start the year as a way for Javonte to get integrated more and get comfortable coming off of the ACL injury. They're not running him straight up the middle into 300-pound linemen. They're using him more as a receiver, with screens or flat routes or anything like that, just to kind of get him into more open space, allow him to do what he does and potentially avoid a major hit out there too. The last thing I want to touch on for this, because you're mentioning using this as an opportunity to buy Jerry Jeudy. I pulled up the DLF Trade Finder. I'm going to give you a barometer for Judy's value on terms of where you would actually be buying him based on recent trades that have happened in just the past few days here since the Jerry Jeudy news. So the first one here is Jeudy for a second, third, and Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I would, in every world, I am doing that trade. Again, Curtis Samuel, interesting flex play with Terry if he's banged up long term. I think Curtis Samuel finds value, but the long play is going to be Jerry Jeudy.
I agree, by the way. And then what about Jerry Jeudy for a 2025 first?
I think I'll take the 2025 first. That's about the line. I feel like that's situation dependent. It depends on my team.
If this Jerry Jeudy injury was the reason why you can't compete anymore, take the 2025 first. If Jeudy was your 4 or 5 that you bought low this offseason, I'd probably keep holding on to him and just see what ultimately he could pan out to be. 2 more here. Jerry Jeudy for Treylon Burks and a 24 second. Are you making that deal?
No, I'm going to take Jeudy. I'm lower on Burks right now. I just have concerns over what he develops into. And again, he's dealing with his own set of injuries right now.
And then Jerry Jeudy or George Pickens.
You son of a. Okay. Give me Jeudy. I will stand on my merit that I am lower on Pickens. I will stick with Jerry Jeudy.
I will decline to answer that and allow you to go off of Justin's answer for that one.
There's your answer. There's Addison's answer. And the last story I am closely tracking, and I'm legally obligated to because I am a Travis Etienne fan, is Hank Bigsby and his preseason usage has continued to tick up to, I believe, his highest snap share in week 3, right? 36% of the snaps. He does fumble inside the 5, at I think the 4 or 5 yard line. So Addison, moving forward, are you trending to like 60-40 split, 50-50, 70-30? How do you think this backfield shakes out, and what does it mean long-term for both these players?
I think it ultimately ends up as a 60-40. I don't think it will ever get to 50-50 because then that would mean that Tank Bigsby is cutting into Etienne's receiving workload or presumed receiving workload. And I just think that of the 2 running backs, ETN is a much better option in terms of actually throwing the ball to. It is a way more explosive athlete, probably
Yep.
more natural actual receiver as well too. Though Bigsby is also a very decent receiver as well. ETN, I think, is just a little bit better. But Bigsby does things that ETN can't do on the ground. This was kind of what everybody's been talking about ever since Bigsby got drafted, was they just complement each other really, really well. And this was kind of the fear with Travis Etienne after Bigsby came to town, but also the hope for Tank Bigsby if you draft him in your rookie drafts or acquired him at all or drafted him in your redraft leagues, that he cuts into Etienne's workload enough to actually be viable on his own whenever ETN is healthy. But it's really looking right now that if anything were to happen to ETN, dude, Bigsby would be a phenomenal player during
Yeah.
those weeks. He would be probably a top 15 running back in this Jaguars offense, soaking up even more of the two down workload, getting the receiving volume that we're hoping that Travis Etienne can get to. I think that this is going to be a really annoying split, probably for ETN managers.
Yeah.
Probably maybe annoying in that Bigsby's usage might be up and down. So if you're trying to rely on Bigsby, it might also be
Yeah.
annoying. I do think that this backfield is going to be really, really fun to watch all season long. And if Bigsby were to get hurt, ETN is going to be phenomenal. If ETN gets hurt, Bigsby is going to be phenomenal. We'll just have to see how it pans out ultimately whenever both of them are healthy.
Yeah, Bigsby is an elite handcuff. Like, he is going to be one of the best handcuffs in the NFL. And again, I was extremely upset when he ended up with the Jags because I think Tank Bigsby is talented, but at least based on usage, again, week 3 of the preseason is it's not going to be the the entire season here. This is not everything, but it is a snapshot, right? Where uh ETN takes 8 carries, Bigsby gets 6, ETN runs 7 routes, Bigsby runs 3. ETN picks up all the third down work. He takes the majority of snaps out of 11 personnel as well. So it appears he's going to be the third down guy. He'll be the 2-minute back. The red zone work is probably going to be split. So I think a lot of the high value touches will stick with ETN, which makes him, I think a safe weekly start. But
Mhm.
like you said, if he goes down or if Bigsby goes down, either one of those running backs, top 12. With the offense, the workload, everything there, they are both just going to explode if either of them gets that backfield to themselves.